Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked Abnormality Edition. In this video, we'll be covering all of Binah's abnormalities. While often overshadowed by Geber in the eyes of newer players, Binah's floor has some really strong cards, so let's get right into it. Starting us off in Tier 1, our F tier page is Long Arms. This page gives a buff to a single ally that makes them take no damage from Burn, Bleed, Fairy, or Sin. Very situationally, this page can be good in receptions against heavy Burn or Bleed characters, but it's often just completely useless. Even when building around the page with stuff like Chuan and Judgment, which we'll go over later, it's just not really worth taking unless you're building towards the beast. Next, in D tier, we have Small Flutters. This page gives a buff to a single ally that boosts their evade die power by 1 to 2, and upon winning a clash from an evade die, their next defensive die gains 1 to 2 power. This page is fairly weak. While the power boost is strong, evade dice are the rarest non-counter die with only 16 pages in Star of the City and Impurity having them, and 26 if you also add Urban Nightmare, so you don't often get much value from it. Singleton builds have Will of the Prescript, charge decks have Quick Suppression, and then there are some sickos who use Snake Slit, Smoking Pipe, or Smoke Smash, but if you're not building around it, your librarian will have 0 to 1 pages that trigger this. Moving on to C tier, we have Eternally Lit Lamp. This page gives a buff to a single ally that lets them redirect any attack regardless of speed. This is some nice quality of life, but it doesn't help you too much. Oftentimes, your librarians will be able to redirect most things they want, but sometimes you roll low or face an enemy with Bind, Haste, or the strongest, in which case this page has you covered. Pretty simple and not that strong, but consistently useful, which puts it above Small Flutters. Our B tier page is Watchful Eyes. This page fully restores the selected librarian's light, and then each scene they'll recover an additional light while a random ally will recover no light. This page works really well if you have a carry page like someone with Myongest. The light restore can be a bit awkward since you're reasonably likely to just have E mode up, but doubling your light regen will let you throw out bomb pages more regularly, and the burden of no light regen is shared between your other librarians, so it isn't felt as much. In A tier, we have Big Eyes. This page gives a buff to a single ally that inflicts Enchanted to all enemies at the start of the scene. Enchanted enemies will prioritize attacking the selected librarian and deal 2 to 4 bonus damage with attacks, but the selected librarian gains 1 to 2 power in all clashes against enchanted enemies and recovers 2 to 5 HP and stagger upon winning a clash. Comparing this to Hod's Glitter, all enemies will always be enchanted and you recover HP and stagger on clash win. These are both pretty substantial upgrades and make this page pretty incredible. It has a bit of synergy with Eternally Lit Lamp, since if you give those pages to different allies, then you'll have an easier time redirecting pages away from the Big Eyes librarian. This page gives power boosting and resource recovery, so it's very strong, although not quite as strong as our S tier page, which is the Weight of Sin. This page gives a buff to a single ally, which makes it so that whenever they mineral, they take 2 to 7 damage and gain 1 to 2 strength and endurance next scene. While this looks very inconsistent at first glance, building around it is fairly easy, with pages like Graze the Grass or even Opportunity Spotted having very thin roll ranges. Rolling 1 to 2 base is a bit of a liability, but when you're gaining 7 or more strength each scene, it starts to matter less and less. If you don't build around this page at all, then I'd say Big Eyes is stronger, but the ceiling of the Weight of Sin is very hard to match. Moving on to tier 2 pages, our F tier page is Punishment. This page gives a buff to a single ally that makes it so that when they take damage, the first die they play next scene gains 2 to 4 power. This page is kind of awful, I think. Taking damage is trivial, but you get a single die boosted per scene, so the effect is pretty negligible. The best thing you can be doing is boosting a single die mass individual, because then it's kind of like getting 10 to 20 power, but even then it's just decent. At least it doesn't have a downside. In D tier, we have Punishing Beak. This page gives a buff to a single librarian that makes their attacks deal bonus damage equal to the number of consecutive scenes they don't take damage, with a max of 10. While 10 bonus damage sounds nice, having a fight even last 10 scenes isn't a guarantee, and once you get hit, your damage resets. This is usually about like 3 or 4 damage with a downside, which is pretty bad for a tier 2 Abno page. Our C tier page is Judgment. This page applies an effect that gives 1 sin to all characters at a 50% chance, and sin can be transferred between characters on hit once per page. If a character has 5 or more sin, they take 10% of their max HP as damage at the start of the scene and all their sin is removed. This is another damage page, but compared to Punishing Beak, it deals more damage consistently, especially to bosses, but has the downside of potentially dealing damage to your own librarians. Considering you choose where clashes go, you're going to be giving more sin to enemies than they're giving to you, and notably, there isn't a max to the damage this page deals, unlike many other % max HP effects. However, it doesn't provide power, sustain, or other utility, so it's kind of mediocre in the end. Moving on to B tier, we have Salvation. This page gives a buff to a single ally that boosts dice power by 1 against enemies with higher speed, and if the target's HP is 25% or lower, the librarian destroys all their dice on clash win. This is two somewhat disjointed effects, but I like the package. It has good synergy with Eternally Lit Lamp, but you'll often just get some bonus value for free. The main effect is the dice destruction, basically killing enemies below 25% HP provided you have sufficiently strong ones. Especially against bosses, it can trivialize entire fights, but against trash fights, it does lose a bit of its value, which is why it only gets B tier. Next, in A tier, we have Tilted Scale. This page gives a buff to a single ally that makes it so that when they hit the enemy with the most HP, the ally with the lowest HP recovers 2 to 8 HP 3 times per scene, excluding mass attacks. This is a really strong restoration page, recovering an average of 15 HP to the librarian who needs it the most each scene. 3 hits on the highest HP enemy is easy to accomplish in mob fights and trivial against bosses, so while the regeneration isn't as high as other pages can achieve, this one is very consistent and useful. That makes our S tier page Small Beak. This adds the page Small Beak to a single ally's hand and is included in their starting deck in future acts. Small Beak is a 0 cost on play page that returns to hand that makes the librarian take 5% of their max HP as damage to restore 1 light. This page uses life as a resource to give you insane light economy. 5% max HP is around 5 HP for most endgame pages, a couple reaching the 6 HP mark, but I'd happily trade that much life to restore light on demand. This page pretty much trivializes your light economy and lets you cast as many bombs as you want, provided you brought Health Hauler, and even if you don't have any health sustain, gives you a lot more flexibility in how you cast your pages. Moving on to tier 3 pages, I put Peace in D tier. This page gives a buff to a single ally that marks the first enemy they attack with Intruder, provided there isn't an intruder present. The Intruder deals 2 to 4 less damage and stagger damage, and takes 1 to 2 bonus damage from attacks. This is a consolation prize for not fulfilling the requirements of the other tier 3 pages, and it shows. This is a strong tier 1 page or mediocre tier 2 page, but as a tier 3 page, it's very lackluster. I do like how you can have multiple intruders over the course of a fight, so it won't become completely useless once the first intruder dies, but it's not enough to save this page from mediocrity. Next, I put the Beast in A tier. This page gives a buff to a single ally that power nulls all characters interacting with the character, as well as lowering their min and max rolls by 3. Additionally, at the end of the scene, all other characters take 15 damage and the selected librarian restores all their light. However, the page requires the selected librarian to have big eyes, small beak, and long arms, or else it does nothing. The Beast has great synergy with big eyes, negative synergy with small beak, and long arms is also here. Unlike Tifsodia, you aren't suffering too much taking an A tier 1 page and an S tier 2 page. Unfortunately, losing both of your tier 1 slots means you can't take the Weight of Sin, and when you do activate the Beast, small beak becomes an active detriment, filling up your hand. Of course, when you do get the Beast, you should probably just win the fight, but the journey there is still somewhat painful, so it doesn't quite get the top ranking. Finally, I put Guardians of the Forest in S tier. This page gives an effect that gives all librarians 1 haste at the start of each scene, and if all 5 of your librarians have an abnormality page, they also get 1 to 2 strength and endurance as well. All of Binah's abnormalities target a single ally, so you don't need to worry about avoiding any pages. There is some downside to needing to spread your pages out because Binah's strongest pages, namely the Weight of Sin, Big Eyes, and Small Beak, are all great on a carry, but it's a small price to pay for 10 to 20 power up and 5 haste. When building towards this page, I might consider taking Eternally Lit Lamp over Big Eyes because the Weight of Sin or Small Beak are stronger pages for your carry. In a similar vein, you might consider Salvation over Small Beak if you took the Weight of Sin for the same reason. Overall, if we include Binah's exclusive page, her floor is pretty incredible with multiple viable build paths. I have her ranked second in my ratings, beating out Gebra. In the next video, we'll be rating all of Hawkman's abnormality pages. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.